Welcome to the Buick Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Sheldon Marion, and on this podcast, we dive deep into the outdoors. We discuss hunting and fishing techniques, give you tips and tricks, tell stories, and everything in between to help you enjoy the outdoors. Today's podcast is sponsored by Aura. As an outdoorsman and online content creator, I like to ensure that I'm protected both in the woods and online. In today's digital world, online and phone scams are becoming increasingly sophisticated, targeting unsuspected people like you and me. It's crucial to stay vigilant, to stay protected from scams, fraud, and identity theft, and that's why I can rely on Aura to keep me protected. With antivirus security for all Android, PC, and Mac devices, you can safely navigate today's online landscape knowing that all of your devices are safe from malware like viruses, spyware, ransomware, and more. With options like Data Broker Opt-out, Aura helps remove your important personal information online from data brokers and websites that sell your data to identity thieves and scammers. If any of your data is compromised, you're covered and can have peace of mind knowing that with your account, Aura provides up to 5 adults $1 million in identity theft coverage for eligible fees and losses totaling up to $5 million. Your safety is top priority, and Aura's 24/7 US-based customer support is always there. You wouldn't go out in the woods unprepared, and now you can be ready for anything online too. Get this all-in-one app at one affordable price. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/Buick to try 2 weeks free. That'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring this podcast. Well, welcome back to another podcast. This week here, I got the call from my taxidermist in Fort St. John saying that my grouse mounts were all said and done. So I was able to head into Fort St. John to Primary Bird Taxidermy and pick up my grouse mounts. Keith did an amazing job on them, and they look absolutely stunning up on the wall. For whatever reason, the spruce grouse looks a little bit better than the rough grouse. And no fault to Keith, but for what, I don't know. To me, a rough grouse is a much prettier bird than a spruce grouse, but mounted, for whatever reason, I really, really like the spruce grouse. And the rough grouse, it looks great on the wall too, but there's just something about that spruce grouse. I don't know if it's just the red on its eye or just the little squint that it has or what, but yeah, I love that little thing. And it's I announced it over on Facebook that I got my mounts, and one of our followers, Lucas, I'll probably bugger up his last name, Kokomore. So yeah, Lucas Kokomore, if that's how you say it. He had a couple questions about them. Basically, what was the price for the grouse mounts, the time, and then also the process for having an animal mounted. And basically, the first two are quick and painless, and then the process for having an animal mounted, I'm going to go into that a little bit, a little more in detail as to different types of mounts you can get, and also different animals. So basically, the price for the grouse mounts, basically $500 each, and then for the time, I want to say it was about 1.5 years for these. Typical time, I think he says about a year. He had a couple of issues there earlier on in the year, which were kind of outside of his, outside of his control, kind of thing. But yeah, typically it's a year. It was 1.5 years for these grouse, but it is what it is. When it comes to taxidermy, basically for us up here anyways, I don't know what it is other places, but for us, typically it's like 1 year to 2 years. If it's anything over 2 years, then I'd start to ask questions and start to kind of get a little bit concerned. But for the majority, as long as you're within that 1 to 2 year window, that's just kind of the going rate. And then for the process of having animals mounted, for birds, it's pretty simple. You take the entire bird, put it into a bag, and you freeze it, and then you call up your taxidermist, you bring it in whole, and you just hand them the whole carcass. With that, it's a very cut and dry, simple method. When I got these birds, I had my little cooler with me and a little ice pack thing that I put in the bottom of it, and I basically grabbed the birds, laid them down on there, trying to keep their feathers as flat as possible, kind of thing, so you're not pulling a bunch out. And then when I got back to my holiday trailer, I took them into just a small garbage bag, not like the real big ones, like the little mini ones or whatever they are, and basically just put them in there head first, wrapped them all up, and then it just froze them solid. And then that way, when you bring them to your taxidermist, he can thaw them out, skin them, do it all good and proper. Because I mean, like, I've never skinned a bird before. Usually I just grab it and kind of pull stuff off, so I have no idea how to actually skin a bird. And I'm sure there's some very specific cuts that you got to make to make mounting it actually possible. And then when it comes to other animals, depending on the mount that you're getting, and also depends on your taxidermist's preferences. I would say the best way to go about it is to actually talk to your taxidermist and know which cuts that they like. For the most part, when it comes to a shoulder mount, you go kind of right around the chest cavity and you make one big cut all around, like kind of middle of the chest, so it comes all the way around the animal to its back, kind of thing. And then some of them like it where it's split, where you go from the top of its spine, like on its back, and you come all the way up to like the base of its ears, kind of a thing. And then from there, you make like the Y cut, where the base of the horns come into the cut that stopped at the base of its ears, and then you skin everything out that way. For me, what I do, well, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. The other way is kind of like what I call like the tube sock way, where you make that first initial cut all the way around the center of that animal, and then you basically like hang them up, and you just pull the hide straight forward towards its head, and you just pull it off like a sock, kind of a thing. And again, depending on your taxidermist's preferences. When I got my deer mounted, what I did was I split it up its back to the base of its ears, and then I skinned everything up until about the jawline, and then the whole head, I let the taxidermist skin that out. When you're skinning out the ears, the eyes, and the nose, and especially the eyes, if you don't make those cuts just right, what ends up happening is you can kind of screw up like their eyelids and stuff like that. Back in the day when we used to do a bunch of trapping, I've skinned quite a few animals, and when it comes down to its head, the ears, you can kind of screw that up too. You have to see right where the cartilage is starting to pop out, and you cut into the skull, and then you end up taking like the whole cartilage off, and you're left with just a little hole where it connects to the skull. And then when it comes down to the eyes, pretty well as soon as you start to see like the round of the eye, you take your knife and almost kind of cut like at an angle like this, but it's more closer to the skull than it is to the eyelid, because if you go to the eyelid, what will end up happening is instead of cutting out kind of like where your tear duct is here, you'll kind of cut right here, across the eye almost, and then instead of having a nice little eye socket where you can see like this little faint black outline all the way around it, you'll end up splitting that, and it'll just create like a giant hole, kind of a thing. It's very hard to explain and describe without actually like showing. But unfortunately, this is a podcast. I don't have like a squirrel or a marten here that I can skin out for you. But yeah, when it comes to skinning the head out too, a lot of times what will end up happening is the taxidermist will charge you. Typically, it's about $100 skinning fee, and I gladly paid that, because if you don't, if you skin it out and you screw it up, then you have to buy a hide, and I don't know how much that costs. Say it's, even if it's $100, you got to spend $100 anyways. Or if you've done it several times and you're good at it, you know what you're doing, you know how to, separate the hide from the horn, you know how to make the cuts along the eyes and the lips and the ears, and you just enjoy doing it or whatever, you know what, save yourself the $100, then you can do it. But yeah, for me, it's just easier for me just to take the head with the hide attached to it and just say, here you go, I'll pay you the extra whatever. At least then that way I know that it gets done, it's done properly, and it's done right. And I wouldn't say there's no chance of screwing up. I mean, the taxidermist can make a bad cut, but the chances of it getting screwed up are very, very slim at that point. And then when it comes to doing things like full body mounts, those cuts, especially on like bears, or well, anything that you're doing rugs with, bears, cats, wolves, you really got to be careful when you're making the initial cuts down into the armpits. With those ones, I would have to look, because I've never actually done it myself, but I know if you go too far up or too far down kind of thing, you can really make that arm look just god awful ugly. If you go too high up, instead of being this nice symmetrical or instead of it being like a nice symmetrical arm, it'll be like this weird, real skinny twig looking thing coming up. Or if you go too far down, it'll look like his legs are like 8 inches long, and it's just like this big club kind of thing. It looks ugly. But with that, for me, what I would do is I would just talk to the taxidermist and have them show you. A lot of them have things like on the website where it just shows like a bear that's like kind of sprawled out, and there's little dotted lines showing you where you need to cut. I know it goes from, you split all the way up the middle, and you start right at the base of their paw, and you come down to their elbow, and then from their elbow you turn and you come in to the armpit. And a lot of times what you'll see is the hair kind of grows up and it comes to a point, and right where that point is where you want to split it. So it actually kind of, there's like a natural seam that you can follow. But yeah, just that whole armpit thing, you really got to be careful when you're skinning that. And then when it comes to the paws, what I would do is basically the same thing that I would do with the heads, is I would skin to the base, pretty well just cut the bone off right there, and then just bring the paws and the hide, or the paws and the head attached to the hide, and just take it to the taxidermist and let them do the skinning. With the paws, I think with the pad, you have to go around one side of it and then kind of peel it up, and then you skin out all the toes and the nails and everything like that, and you have to scrape out some of the fat and the cartilage and stuff. And like, it's a process that I've honestly have never done. And if I was going to get a rug done, I would just cut the paws off with them attached to the hide, and I would just take them to the taxidermist and say, hey, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna screw this up. If it costs me an extra couple $100, whatever, I'm already spending $2,000-3,000 on this rug. When it comes to a couple $100, who cares? It's part of taxidermy. It's gonna be a big bill either way, and then this way too, it's gonna be a big bill that's actually something worth showing off. Where if you do it yourself and you screw it up, it's gonna still be a big bill, and you're gonna be like, hey, yeah, look at this bear, just don't look at that paw, or don't look at the, whatever, so at least this way it's kind of done professionally, and you're gonna get your money's worth kind of a deal. When it comes to animals that have horns, one thing you can do, especially when it comes to like moose and elk, with deer, I don't even know if it's an option. I've never really looked into it. But with moose and elk, because their horns can be so big, you can get them with detachable horns. So on the mount itself, it's kind of just like they put like a base in the head with like a insert, and then that insert is on the horn, and you just kind of lock it into place, kind of a deal. That is a nice option to have for moose and elk, and caribou, I guess. And I think with those, typically for the removable horns, I want to say it's like an extra $200 cost, kind of a thing. And again, if you're spending, you know, $2,500 to get an elk done, what's another $200 plus the skinning fee, another $100 or whatever? You know, it's like, if you're getting something mounted and you don't expect a massive bill, I mean, it's it's taxidermy. Pretty well, anything that you want, it's $2,000 and up. So I mean, like, when it comes to doing taxidermy too, typically what I would say is don't get something taxidermied if you can't afford it, or if you go, this is gonna be close, but we'll make it work. Just, it's one of those things where if you're gonna get something taxidermied, especially like a shoulder or a full mount, you know, you can't really care about the price. Basically, drop it off, call me when it's done, and I'll pay it. That has to be your attitude going in. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for the cheapest taxidermist, the cheapest mounts, the shittiest job, basically, you know, and it's not going to be worth it in the end. If you're looking at getting some things like a marten, fisher, wolverine, anything like that mounted, or coyote or wolf, when it comes to that skinning process, honestly, I would just call up the taxidermist and just ask them if they could do it, and then pay the skinning fee. You know, you could do it yourself, but again, I guess it'd be the same process as a bear, just smaller kind of thing. Kind of also depends on what you're getting mounted as well, and how. If you're wanting just a simple rug made up, you know, you can be a little bit more lenient on your cuts, and you know, you could make a small mistake here and there, and like a really good taxidermist can fix minor mistakes. But then if you're getting like a full body mount done, again, I'm assuming it would be the same as doing a black bear. So you'd split them up in the middle, and then the same cuts down the arms and stuff like that. But again, with those ones, just because I wouldn't say a perfectionist, but if I'm gonna get something mounted like a fisher or a wolverine or anything like that, I want to say those are about $2,000. So if I'm gonna be spending $2,000 already, what's another couple $100 to get it like professionally skinned, and you know for sure that it's done properly and it's done right. Also, when you're skinning something out, talk to your taxidermist about how they want that hide preserved. A lot of times, what you'll hear is they want non-iodized salt. Basically, lay out your hide, and you want to try to scrape off as much fat and meat as possible. From what I've been told, it could be different depending on your taxidermist. Some of them might like the fat and the meat left on it, just so in that way there's no chance of you nicking it, and then they can, you know, fairly easily trim it all off and scrape it all off and all that good stuff. But from what I've been told, is you want to take off as much fat and as much meat as possible, because especially like the fat, it'll go rancid and rot really quick, and then that'll end up rotting out your hide, which will make the hair slip. But once you remove that stuff, you take non-iodized salt and you put a good layer down, like a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch layer of salt down, and then you take the hide and you fold it up so it's leather on leather, and then you roll it up till it's up to its neck, and then you take that, put it into a bag, and you freeze it. And then why I was told that you want to roll it up that way is because when the leather is on the leather, you know, you just fold it up onto itself. There's nothing like adhering to the hide or to the hair on the outside. And then when you roll it up, pretty well from the bottom to the top towards the head, what ends up happening is when you freeze it, when it comes to the taxidermist, when he goes to unthaw it, he can grab something like a coat hanger or like a really thick wire. They pretty well run it through like their nose and they hang it up, and then as it thaws, it just kind of naturally unrolls itself, and then everything kind of goes down and away from the head and all that good stuff. So it's easier for the taxidermist to thaw it out and to get to work on it, and it limits the possibility of the hide or the hair slipping. And when the hair slips, pretty well like the hair follicles, they die or they open up or whatever, and the hair just falls out. And I mean, you know, if you had a bald deer, it would make a pretty ugly mount. So you want to make sure that your hide doesn't go rotten and rancid and slips all the hair. That's something that taxidermists won't be able to fix. If you make a nick or a hole here and there, they can sew it up, and they can, you know, they can patch up quite a bit of stuff. But if there's no hair left on your hide, they definitely can't fix that. God himself can't fix that one. Other things that you can get mounted nowadays are fish mounts. And fish, especially if you go to somewhere like Jeepers, Advanced Taxidermy, they have incredible talented guys there. Basically what you do is you take a picture of your fish and you take a measurement from the tail to the tip of the nose and then the girth. So with those measurements and a picture of the fish, you can send those into the guys and they do hand painted replicas. Depending on the size of the fish too, it's another one of those $500 to $2,000 kind of a thing. For the price quotes, you'd have to talk to Advanced Taxidermy directly. And with those guys, they don't just take a chunk of foam and paint it. The amount of stuff that they can do with these mounts is like, it's breathtaking work. If you go onto their website and you look at all their stuff, they do, you know, mammals and everything too. But especially their fish mounts, it is, they're works of art. And you can have them where you can do custom like coffee tables, corner mounts, wall mounts. There was a poker table. One was like a little coffee table. It was like an ice fishing scene, and I want to say it was like a bunch of bluegill or something like that. But it looked like a chunk of ice with holes drilled, and the fish were laying on the side. Like, it was just absolutely beautiful. And then they do a bunch of saltwater fish. They've done incredible work with, I think it was a life-size humpback whale mount that they did. I don't know how much foam or how much paint that would have taken, but I bet you it would have been an astronomical number. But yeah, the work that those guys can do is just amazing. And like, even if you don't have pictures or measurements, they can kind of roughly estimate it. If you just call them up or send them an email and you just kind of give them like, you know, your fishtail kind of thing. Like, you just kind of give them your fishing story, you know, like this was roughly how big it was and yada yada whatever, and they can come up with something and get you to approve it, whatever, and then they can get to working on it. So even if you haven't taken any measurements, or like you just remember, you know, when I was 10, my grandpa caught this fish in the river, and you know, whatever, they can take your fish story and they can make a mount with just going off of your word, you know what I mean? And yeah, they make just incredible stuff, and I would highly, highly recommend those guys to anyone. I haven't done it yet, but eventually I'm going to get one of my salmon mounted. It was one of those things, you know, like when I was 14 or 15 years old, maybe 16, I caught roughly a 50-pound Chinook down in Prince Rupert, and ever since then I've wanted to get it done, and I almost got it mounted, probably about 10 years ago now, and then it was about $500 to do it, and that's for a fish that's like 4 feet long and like, I don't even know how wide it was, 20 inches wide kind of a thing, or I guess deep. Width wise, he's, I don't know, 8 inches or something like that, whatever it was. But anyways, yeah, roughly 10 years ago for a 4-foot, Chinook salmon, it was right around $500. And then they can do like a coral scene or have them like chasing a herring or something like that, So depending on what you're wanting done, and how extravagant to, again, the price, it's whatever you make it. There is a baseline, but what that baseline is now, I don't really know. Like I said, about 10 years ago, it was about $500. Another thing that's come up recently, and it's actually a really, really cool new form of taxidermy, I guess I can call it, is digital taxidermy. There's a website that I found. It's called digitaltaxidermy.com. And basically what they do is they have scenes that you pick from, and then you take a picture of your deer, moose, or elk, I think antelope, and also fish, and you send them your pictures, and they can put your deer or whatever it is, your animal that you sent them a picture of, onto these scenes. And I think for whitetail there was like 200 different scenes. There's a scene of fields and in trees, winter scene, fall scene, spring scenes, them crossing a river, them standing on the edge of a creek and stuff like that. And basically, yeah, you take a picture of your animal, send it to them, they digitally crop it into their little photo scenes, and then yeah, they send you that picture. And it's not just pictures that they do too. I believe they do, I got written down here, they do framed pictures, coffee mugs, travel mugs like thermoses, phone cases, and they also do blankets. And yeah, they do whitetail, mule deer, elk, moose, fish, and wood burning. I seen their little wood burning plaques. So you send them a picture, and with that, it doesn't have to be just animals. It can be anything. There's people with like, a guy standing there with his dad, kind of a thing. And they basically take that picture, put into their little program or whatever, and then there was 3 different sizes that you can choose from, and pretty well a laser etches your picture into these wood plates basically, and then they send that to you. And with the digital taxidermy, I want to say most pictures that I've seen, I'm kind of guessing now, I want to say it was like $120 to $200 per picture. One thing I didn't do is I didn't see how big those pictures were. So yeah, you might want to look into that a little bit further and don't just go off of my word. But yeah, it's digitaltaxidermy.com. And one thing I thought about doing for some of the stuff that I got here is like the areas that I got them in. The mule deer, that was my dad's deer. He got that in the Peace River Hills. So I was thinking about doing like a digital taxidermy where I take a picture of this wall mount, send it to them, find a mule deer like river scene, and have them, print that off for me and maybe send that to dad, kind of a thing. So in that way he can still kind of have his deer while I have the actual head mount, kind of deal. Same with one of the whitetails out there. Got that one was out of a big field, so you could do like a field digital taxidermy kind of thing, and then maybe even have the print sitting beside this deer. And then the other one, I got that in like kind of like thick woods. So again, you go to digital taxidermy, pick out one of their scenes where it's like real thick, heavy brush or whatever, send them a picture of this whitetail, and get that printed out. And again, maybe put that beside this one, or put up some pictures in the office here, because I have room for pictures, but I don't really have room for mounts. So it would be kind of cool to look up at a picture and see dad's whitetail or dad's mule deer or my whitetail kind of a thing. And yeah, it'd be pretty cool. They also did antelope and then also the fish. The fish digital stuff, I didn't really look into that one overly too much. To me, that would be kind of, I would go the advanced taxidermy way if I was going to get a fish done. A picture of a fish, to me, it just sounds kind of, it'd be kind of cool, but almost slightly weird at the same time. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the fish taxidermy, or like the digital taxidermy. It'd be, I don't know. It'd be neat, I guess. One thing that I haven't been able to find though for taxidermy is horn replicas. When I was 17, I shot a really, really big moose. And like he was like a glorious moose. And I would love to get horn replicas made. But what I might have to do is actually use like digital taxidermy and just take pictures off of like Facebook or wherever it is that I got them and send those to them and get like a digital mount of my big moose. But if there is some sort of a horn replica person out there, please let me know, because I would love to get my moose done. And I don't know how you would even really do a horn replica. Maybe like wire and like clay or some sort of styrofoam and just kind of cut it out. Maybe. I'm not too sure. But yeah, if there is, if anybody knows of a horn replica out there, let me know in the comments or reach out to me on Facebook or whatever. Because, yeah, that would be something I'd really, really look into. And, yeah, hopefully this answers some of your guys' questions on getting animals mounted and the processes. I know I did the entire spread kind of a thing. But yeah, hopefully that helps you guys out. Hopefully, if you're wanting to get something done up, especially birds, it's something that doesn't seem to be too many people out there that get them done. But after I got these chickens done, I think it's something that I'm going to get a lot more made up. Man, they look cool. They look nice. And it's fairly cheap too. You know, for my deer, it was $1,500 or $2,000. Where these chickens, they're about $500 each. So it's a cheaper alternative to getting into taxidermy instead of having your deer or elk done up kind of thing. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, hit that like button down the bottom there. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're just listening to us, we'd really appreciate it if you head over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Anyways, guys, that's it for today. Catch you on the next one.